Kind friend, you must pity my horrible tale. I'm an object of pity, I'm looking quite stale. I gave up my trade, selling rights, patent pills, to go looking for gold in those dreary black hills.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight. Howdy there, daylight burners. This episode of the show is brought to you by Stetson Ranches up in Fromberg, Montana. Friends of the show, good friends of mine, and I'm honored to have them as a sponsor of the show. They're a multi-generational ranch family, some of the best people that you'll ever meet. They're looking at building a legacy type operation that'll be sustainable and profitable for many generations to come. And to do that, they diversified their operation. They're bringing you pasture-raised, direct-to-consumer beef right to your doorstep, delivered on dry ice for $6.95 a pound. It's going to be prime every single time. These are registered Black Angus cows being bred to registered Hereford bulls, and those calves are going to be that's what we call an F1 Black Baldy cross, and they're going to feed out there on the Stetson Ranch place, and they'll be processed locally and shipped to your door. Prime steak for $6.95 a pound, raised to the best standards you can imagine, the best feed quality available. And it's going to be the best beef right there on your plate. They also got some of the best quarter horses that money can buy. We're talking old foundation quarter horse bloodlines, Zanpar Bar, Two-Eye Jack, Peppy Sand Badger, Doc Bar, all on their papers. Really nice, well-built, shapy, heavy-boned, athletic mares being bred back to some of the best studs out there today. They're going to throw some colts they're just built to work and got the disposition to match. They're ready to go any direction you want to, and I'm really proud to call this family friends of mine. I'm really happy they sponsored the show. So check them out online if you'd like to order some beef. StetsonRanches.com. Go give Jesse a follow on Facebook and Instagram at Jese Stetson. That's Jesse with one S. Let him know that Burning Daylight sent you. Next up, we got Loma Livestock, owned and operated by my good buddy George Raftopoulos. Simply put, it's the best goddamn sale barn in North America. Got a sale coming to you every Monday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. They're at 1369 12.5 Road in Loma, Colorado. If you can't make the sale, don't worry about it. You can find them over online at dbauctions.com. Click on the Loma Livestock tab. DB Auction, singular, not plural. Yeah, dbauction.com. Click on the Loma Livestock tab. And you can watch the sale live right there, and you can bid right from the comfort of your own home. And George is doing some really cool things with technology, with some traceability stuff, trying to add the most value to your cattle, and just trying to make the best environment for the buyer and the seller both. And he's a good friend of mine, good friend of the show, and I'm really glad to have him on board. So go check him out, lomalivestock.com. Go follow him on Facebook and Instagram. And if you got any questions or you'd like to consign, give him a holler, 970-858-9988. Next up, we got Ryan Erickson and Oxbar Custom Cowboy Gear. Ryan is a friend of mine as well. He's been building cowboy gear since 1995. He's located there in Stanley, New Mexico, building custom buckles, bits, spurs, chinks, shaps, any sort of cowboy gear you think you might need. He can probably build it for you, all custom made to order, and just excellent, heavy duty, well crafted, and really pretty goddamn good artwork too. So check him out on Facebook and Instagram. That's Oxbar Custom Cowboy Gear. Give him a follow. Make sure you tell him you heard about him on Burning Daylight. And finally, we got the official boot of Burning Daylight, Houston Boot Company out of Virginia City, Nevada. My good buddy Jake Houston, who I'll be sharing the stage with here later this week. Building handmade, made to order, all custom cowboy boots. Man, this guy does such a good job. I really can't talk highly enough about the job that he does. I mean, just really well made. His customer service is like off the charts. He makes good shit, and he makes them look really good too. It's really a work of art. You got on your feet if you're wearing a pair of his boots. He's he's learned from the best, and he's picking up new methods and tricks all the time, and he finds the best leather, and really honestly the best way to do it is just tell him kind of what you like and tell him to run with it, and he'll make it look cool as shit. So go check him out on Facebook, Jake Houston, and he's on Instagram at Houston Boot Co. And let me find his number here real quick, but you can also give him a holler. He'd rather measure your foot himself, but if need be, he can send you a kit that'll so you can measure your foot on your own. And but he does just really, really, really good work. It's amazing what this guy does. Anyway, his number is 775-315-3022. Or if you're in Virginia City, check him out. He's right there on Main Street. So anyhow, thanks to all the sponsors, and I appreciate you all coming on. And let's get into the show.
Don't go away, stay at home if you can. Stay away from the city they call it Cheyenne. For Big Wallopy or Command.
Well, howdy there, Daylight Burners. Happy Monday. End of January is coming up real quick, ain't it? Man, 2021 is, woo boy, we're off for a wild ride. Anyhow, I guess big week for me is upon us. Going to pick up Sam from the airport on Wednesday. We got a show on Friday, so I hope to see everybody there that can make it. If you're in the Elko area, where we'll be doing a first annual Elko Bull Session. So going to be a good time. I'm a little nervous, not going to lie, but I'm pretty damn stoked about it. Sam McHugh will be joining me. Jake Houston making the trip down from Virginia City. And then, of course, Matt and Rachel Wilson, also known as Wampus Cat, will be joining me on stage. My dad is going to try to make it. He's a little worried about the weather, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But anyhow, it's going to be a good time. Friday night, 7:00 at the Stage Door in Elko. So if you're around, please join. And anyhow, we'll get into this little deal here. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to talk about today. I had a couple interviews kind of fall through, or just didn't really get them scheduled like I had planned. So, and I didn't want to go full on political episode because I got one coming up with Aaron here tomorrow. You'll hear it on Wednesday if you're not a Patreon member. But anyhow, I got to pondering about things. I got asked by what I meant when during, I think it was the Festivus episode or something. I'd mentioned how we need to stop waiting for people to tell our story and tell it ourselves, and what I meant by that, and how do we put our story out there. And I've pondered on that quite a bit. I didn't have a real good answer to that question, I don't think. Maybe it was better than I thought, but I wasn't real satisfied with that answer, but because I didn't have a very good one. Anyhow, I still don't, I guess, really have a great answer, particularly now with the age of censorship, especially online. I really don't know, and that's part of the reason why I went to this Patreon deal, and I've got mixed thoughts about it, and I honestly don't know. Mostly because me being a consumer of content that I am, and me being a believer in the free market, I believe that you, the consumer, me, the consumer, will pay for whatever we deem necessary, I guess, or important, or whatever we prioritize. However, the content that I'm putting out to you, I don't know if I would pay for it, so therefore I don't know. I don't know why any of y'all would. However, I've also seen, I guess firsthand, somewhat the censorship issue. I I don't think I'm in any danger of being removed from any platform anytime soon. As much as some of the stuff that I put out might be offensive, I don't think typically it crosses over the boundary, but fuck, who knows? If Ron Paul can get banned, and yet I've actually never really received a strike on the page. I've got a couple suspensions on my personal account, but I've always been able to post on my page. The other day, I guess I wasn't able to post on the Facebook page, but I was able to post on Instagram. It was weird. I don't know. They're same company, or owned by the same people, so I don't know how all that works. I honestly don't know. And because of that, I can't confidently say that I'm in no danger of being removed from a platform. So anyhow, I guess it's better. Long story short, I've had this Patreon for a while, but I didn't ever think there was any real value to you guys to really start promoting it, and now I still don't know if there is, but I'm working on putting up my back catalog. I'm gonna, I guess, essentially I'm gonna try to move all my stuff to where I'm in control of it, and some of that means that it might be paid content and some of it not. But anyhow, I'm also working on something to make it more worth your while. If you do join the Patreon, probably do some drawings every month. I'll use proceeds from people that sign up to pay to buy some sort of something or other. Eventually, hopefully we'll get it sponsored. And anyhow, it'd be a drawing based on if you're a Patreon member or whatever. But anyhow, I guess I'm just gonna leave it up to the market to decide, and if it's worth your while to pay for, then I guess I'll know, and if not, well, I'll still keep putting out the audio podcast as scheduled. However, all the video content will be on Patreon, and hopefully in the future I can set something up to where it's all through my website or an app or something, but that's a ways down the road. In the meantime, this is the best alternative I've found. They're pretty damn lenient with censorship on Patreon, considering that you're behind a paywall. So I set the lowest level at $1 because I think that's as low as they'll let you get. Go. They don't let you have a free option, but anyhow, that's for the bull session live streams. The bull session will still post on the regular podcast. So if that's how you typically listen and not join in live, then don't worry about it. We'll also in the future when I get ahead of things, we'll have some like early release stuff for certain interviews and whatnot. But I don't know. I just I feel like this is the best way to go. And it kind of leads into to the topic of this episode, but not so much that this particular issue is as I've titled the next American Revolution. I don't think that's what this will be over, but I do believe that social media is 100% where it will be started. And whether that be, a week from now or whatever, or, 20, 30 years down the road, I don't know. It's hard to accurately predict events happening in real time. But I think if you zoom out a bit and try to look ahead in the future, I think you'll be able to see that we are in the throes of, if it's not in the early stages of armed conflict, or just in the overall building of tensions, much like, leading up to the Civil War, or the events leading up to the Boston Tea Party and, the Boston Massacre, Bunker Hill, all these pivotal events that kicked off something much bigger. So whether it be, firing on Fort Sumter, or, I don't know. I think the events that we're living through are leading up to something big. And I use the social media deal because, like it or not, that is the main mode of communication in our day and age. If you remember back to my Mormon episode, one of the big things that happened, pretty frequently was the smashing of printing presses. Well, printing press was the Facebook of the day, or whatever. If you had a printing press and you had you had the funds in which to operate it, you were only constrained by your time and by your resources. But if you had an unlimited amount of resources, you still only had so many hours in a day. But regardless, it beat the hell out of trying to write it, every single copy. I mean, you wrote it out once, they put the typeset in, and you could just print off 1,000 copies, as fast as you could. and you saw that a lot, not exclusively to the Mormons, but to different groups of people throughout the years. That was one of the common things, because if you smashed their printing press, then they couldn't spread their propaganda as easily, whether it be the truth or propaganda, usually depending on which side of the argument you laid on. Anyhow, you destroy their means to communicate, makes it harder for them to communicate. So if you equate the Mormon printing press in far west Missouri or wherever, put that on the same level of taking down the Twitter account of Donald Trump. Well, actually, let's call the Mormon printing press right on the same level of Alex Jones. Kind of crazy. Makes a lot of sense to some people. If you listen to him long enough, make a lot of sense to most people. Still kind of crazy. and has a large following, but I guess in the in the grand scheme of things, not overly consequential, but I guess definitely deemed a threat. We could equate Alex Jones and InfoWars with Joseph Smith and the Mormon printing press, and you smash their press, and or you take Alex Jones off of YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and everything. He doesn't go away. Makes him a little harder to get his message out, but his followers will find it. I mean, if we look, and I'm not saying that Alex Jones is the next Mormon prophet by any means. I'm not saying that Joseph Smith wasn't a crazy man either. However, they Joseph Smith got people to come to him and then go out on pilgrimages and missions and building the temple and whatever. Alex Jones gets people to show up in Washington D.C. and protest, and it's not all that different. So, religious views aside, you can see a lot of similarities. And now, when you silence the leader of the most powerful country on earth, I guess that could be debatable for some with China, but I think overall, if you look at militarily and economically, the United States is the most powerful nation on earth. And you take away the means for the leader to communicate, even though it may be only a couple weeks left in office, but you look over the last couple months and you've heard about Trump, but you have not heard a whole lot from him. And I find it very hard to believe that he's been all that silent. It's been a media blackout. And I think that is akin to smashing the printing press. And it was counterproductive then, and it'll be counterproductive now. Somehow, Donald Trump will get his message out. People will find it. People will listen. And if you thought he was crazy before, I don't see him calming down any. And to be 100% fair, he's not got a whole lot of reason to. So, where the next American Revolution begins, I don't know. But the way I see everything shaping up, I believe it'll be fought over water. And I might be a little biased, considering my dad's really involved in one of these water deals. However, I think there's pretty strong evidence to support that. If you look, I guess if you put all of your suspicions about the presidential election aside, just put that to the side for a minute and just look at the results as we have them, as have been certified. Donald Trump and the Republicans lost the state of Georgia. Not only did they lose the presidency, they lost 2 Senate seats there. Whether they're legitimate or not, I don't know. I'm not going to comment on that. That's been beat to death, and nobody fucking knows. I'm sure we'll find out more in the coming years, but I don't know if we'll ever really know who actually won the 2020 presidential election or the Georgia runoff. But as the results that we have them are certified, Republicans lost Georgia, which is like a solid conservative Republican state. I didn't even have it in contention. Republicans also lost Arizona. They lost Wisconsin, which is not a huge shock. Trump won Wisconsin, but that was kind of it was an upset. Same with Michigan, which Trump lost this time. So that those they're swing states and they're toss ups. Georgia was not supposed to be really a swing state. Arizona, I thought was as a swing state to a certain extent, but I thought it was still pretty solid Republican. I was wrong on that one. Nevada did what Nevada does. Colorado, I don't know if they'll ever vote Republican again. But you look at a lot of these, and Texas got a lot more purple. And you look at a lot of these states that Trump lost this time. Ones that, like I said, put your thoughts of how legitimate it was aside, and just look at what we've established. Because, like it or not, Trump is not making some 92-dimensional chess move here. Trump's out of office. Joe Biden is in office, and this is what we're working with. The results of the elections that were certified. So you're seeing a lot of people move out of California and New York, as I've been talking about quite a bit. And all those people got to go somewhere. A lot of them went to Texas. A lot of them went to Nashville. And if you've noticed, particularly in TV shows, Walking Dead is one in particular, and there's a couple other I can't remember right off the top of my head, but they've got a little scene. I think it's at the end of an episode that shows like state of Georgia. It's got a peach there, and it has a little blurb about being filmed in the state of Georgia. Well, Georgia has a lot of tax incentives for Hollywood people to film there. There's a lot of different, like Toronto's another place. You see a lot less stuff filmed in Hollywood anymore because of taxes and all the liberal bullshit. So they move out to these more conservative states, Georgia being one. And now you've got a lot of Hollywood people living in and around Atlanta, and with their jobs come, with their move comes jobs. In that industry, it's going to lean heavily left. Same things happening to Austin, Texas. Anybody that follows Joe Rogan or Drinking Bros or any number of podcasts, like Austin has become like the new mecca for podcasters. Still way too fucking many people down there. My grand goal for this is to have a ranch somewhere out in the middle of fucking nowhere and have my recording studio there on the ranch, and eventually have people come out and hang out there and do the interviews. And I don't ever want to have to go to some big city to run my show. Fuck all of that. But anyhow, there's a lot of people moving to Vegas. Vegas is now, the Vegas metro area is like 3 million people. There's only 4 million people in the state. So most of those people coming from California and places like that, LA in particular, and making Nevada even more blue. It's really, Nevada is a really stark contrast. It's like most of the states in particularly the West, but I'd venture to say most of the states in the country in general. Like even say New York, which always votes Democrat, but you look at it and outside of New York City, not many people vote Democrat. However, there's not that many people that live outside New York City. But you won't see it more pronounced than in Nevada, because you have a blue dot up where Reno is, and you have a blue, a bigger dot, I guess. You have a blue county in Washoe County, and you have a blue county in Clark County. And that is pretty much it. And those two counties control the entire state. You get into a bigger state like Texas, and you have a few more counties like that. You got Austin, you got Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, El Paso, all pretty heavily Democrat, while the rest of the state is pretty much Republican. And Texas is a huge state. I think you're going to see the internal politics of Texas change pretty drastically here in the next 5 to 10 years. And you're going to see a lot more of these traditionally deep red states. You're seeing it in Kansas, too. Kansas has a Democratic governor. I don't think Kansas has sent a Democratic senator to D.C. since like the early 1900s, and that was like a populist Democrat. But Kansas has a Democratic governor. When you see these states that are really trying to lure businesses in from liberal states with tax incentives, you're gonna get more liberal policies. And the big deal now is don't California my Texas, but shit, we've been saying that in Colorado for a long time. They've been saying that here in Nevada for just as long. And I think just about every other Western state is starting to see what Nevada and Oregon and Washington and Colorado have been saying for decades now. But now it's even happening on the East Coast too, or I guess east of the Mississippi. But I was hearing some statistics the other day, and I'm not going to repeat them because I can't recall them right off the top of my head. But it was a pretty huge portion of the state of New York, like the adult population in New York, like something like 10% had moved out in. I know it was 10%, but I can't remember the timeline, if it was like 1/4 of 2020 or if it was all of 2020. Anyhow, that's a lot of people moving elsewhere. And then you zoom in on my dad's case, where he is disputing water rights, and in particular groundwater rights. And it's kind of a new ball game. Surface water rights have been established and fought over, but there's been a lot of battles over them, and a lot of them I don't know. If you truly know water law, particularly in the American West, chances are you don't know a whole lot else, because there's a lot of shit there. And but groundwater in particular is pretty new, because before the advent of the internal combustion engine and big machinery, you dug wells all the time, but you didn't really dig wells for irrigation, really. I mean, you relied on rivers and streams and natural springs and stuff like that for your irrigation. But now, where we can drill way down deep and hit a pocket of water and then run a pivot to pump that out and water your crops, boy, you're talking a whole new ball game. But when they first started doing that, I mean, it's kind of like, well, it's kind of like settling the West. There was the Indians out there, but as far as anybody from Europe was concerned, or the Eastern U.S., that was just free land for the taking. You just had to survive the Indians, because well, let's face it, we didn't really consider them actually people back then. And that's kind of what the groundwater deal was. Whoever could get in the ground and start pumping water onto their crops they could really make some money pretty quick, and expand their operation. But now we've got a crisis on our hands. We've got farming so subsidized by the government. We've got a bunch of really intricate and little known water laws. If my dad's case shows you anything, it's just how little people that are supposed to be running these regulatory boards actually know about what they're supposed to be doing. And but that's government for you. But it doesn't make you feel any better. And now you got a bunch of people moving from the cities, whether it be New York or LA or San Francisco or Boston, Chicago, Seattle. Well, they're moving out, and especially now in the age of COVID, where it's become easier than ever to work from home or work remotely. Well, now they don't have to be in the city, so they move out, but they want the comfort and the convenience of the big city. They want the cultural aspect of the big city, but they also want the cheap cost of living. So they start implementing these little rules and regulations that work so well for them back in California and New York. And next thing you know, you've got some place like Nevada or Colorado where pretty deep conservative states that are now just you got small pockets of large population controlling the entire state. You're seeing it up in Idaho quite a bit. Boise has been growing like crazy. Coeur d'Alene, I think, as well. And you're taking a traditionally rural state, and you're making a lot of the natives uncomfortable, a little restless. And then you compound the water deal, where you got big multinational companies moving in, buying up these places, or you got municipalities, places like Denver, Los Angeles, buying water rights from these ranches, sometimes hundreds of miles away from the city themselves, and they're just pumping all that water to Denver or to LA. In some cases, like the Colorado River, where it originates in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, but you've got people in LA that are on the receiving end of that water that are really up in arms because it's just a trickle by the time they get down there. You see the same thing from Colorado to Kansas with the Arkansas River, or the Republican River between Colorado and Nebraska. And now you've got talk of water speculation and water futures. And this is one of those issues that really, it's one of the reasons why I've never really taken the full plunge into just full on anarchism. Like at some point, the small farmer rancher is not going to be able to fight the bigger company without some sort of legal body protecting them. And in this case, I don't know, but even in this case, where the board that is supposed to protect the water rights of the individual, independent producer, farmer, rancher, municipality, whatever it is, even in this case where you got a good old boys club where it's, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but I see that as eventually as that being the big catalyst. Whether it's over water in particular, or if it's just overall a general kind of class struggle between rural and urban? I don't know. But I think water is going to play a huge part of it. And here in the West, we've seen a lot of times where disputes over water turned bloody, and disputes over land turned bloody. That was commonplace all through the West, even up into the present day. And it just seems like we might be on a like a one-way, just like a collision course with it at this point. And maybe I'm just a little too alarmist. I don't know, but when you see Joe Biden bring up domestic terrorism in his speech, and then you look at some of those images and videos from the Capitol Hill riot, and I refuse to call that an insurrection, because if you're going to call that an insurrection, you got to call balls and strikes, and you've got to at least make some passing mention of the violence throughout the summer if you're going to call what happened at the Capitol an insurrection. That being said, neither one of them were good. They were both bad. However, when you look at how hard they have cracked down on that Capitol Hill deal, it's starting to get real spooky. You've got politicians like AOC calling for like truth and reconciliation in the media, and like government moderated media and content, and making lists of Trump supporters. And well, how deep does that list go? Because I voted for the guy, but I've got hours and hours of shit where I talked about how I wasn't particularly a Trump supporter, but I've also got probably the equal amount of numbers of stuff where I talked about how I did like him, and I laid out why I did vote for him. Does that make me a domestic terrorist? In her eyes, probably, yeah. I don't know. And as dumb as she is, she's not going anywhere. And now, if you look at these big, like, cataclysmic events in our lifetimes in particular, at least from like when I was a conscious, discerning, at least moving into adulthood. So 9/11 happened. I was a sophomore in high school. And I was rah, go America. And then, 2004, I went into college. And right about those times, like, we were starting to hear about some of the negative effects of the Patriot Act. And I remember thinking, boy, that's not right. But hey, I'm a good red-blooded American, rural country boy that, I'm gonna support George W. Bush and support the military, support the troops, whatever. Well, then you get to realizing what the Patriot Act actually did, and essentially made the Constitution worthless. I mean, by all means, I mean they could detain American citizens indefinitely without charging them. They could spy on everybody, and that still gets passed. It's still in effect today. It gets renewed every time it comes up. But they preyed on the emotions of the country, and you seize power when people's emotions were at the highest, and so they have very little. They have very little awareness of what the potential ramifications are coming. Same thing with Obamacare. They drummed up this healthcare crisis leading up to to the election, and he was going to do something. They piggybacked that on with the war that nobody was in favor of, and next thing you know, you got Obamacare. That just 6 years later, after they got it passed, 6 years, that was it. All of a sudden, they can't even get rid of the damn thing. And now they're talking about he's talking about in his first 100 days getting this domestic terrorism deal passed. And who the fuck knows what's going to be in that? Joe Biden is no socialist. Don't kid yourself. He's not a Bernie Sanders type, and Bernie Sanders is not like a real true socialist in like the true sense of the word. But Joe Biden is no fan of small government either. And I think what we're going to find out here, and you're already seeing it, Black Lives Matter, the organization, has not received a call back from Joe Biden. They didn't get invited to the White House. And they used Black Lives Matter to help get him elected, but they don't fit into the modern Democratic Party agenda, so they'll get cast to the curb just like everybody else. And don't be surprised when Antifa and Black Lives Matter get labeled as a domestic terrorist organization right alongside Trump supporters, the new Patriot Party or whatever it is, libertarians, and everybody else who doesn't just worship the state, the government as a whole. And I don't know, man. Maybe I'm a little more paranoid than most, but I don't like where this is headed. And I don't know, maybe it all comes to a head before the water revolution touches off, but I don't even know how it gets resolved. I really don't. I've got several, I asked here a while ago in the bull session group for topics, historical topics in particular to cover. And one of them that was mentioned was a guy named Kit Laney, who I'd never heard of, but he's from down in New Mexico, kind of has a very similar story to Cliven Bundy, as a younger guy than Cliven, but a very similar deal, but obviously not as well known because I didn't know about it. And I think I try to stay pretty up to date on these type of deals. So also just shows me that maybe I need to pay a little closer attention, which we all could do, to be honest. But anyhow, this whole Western struggle is all at the very roots is a struggle of property rights, whether it be between us and the Indians or us and the government. Between us and the Indians, that was a pretty discernible struggle. You could see where that whole deal started. White settlers set their flag in the ground, made their stake, and that was on Indians' traditional buffalo hunting grounds. So clashes ensued, but then the government gets involved, and next thing you know, there are no buffalo, and the Indians are being forced on the reservations. But now you got these huge tracts of land that are owned by the government, which by the founding documents of the country, they're not really ever supposed to own that much land. And now you've got a property rights struggle there from settlers like the Bundys or the Laney family that settle on public land, start making improvements to land, develop water rights. And out here in the West, it's all the water rights are based on prior acquisition. So whoever gets there first and can prove how much they use and how much they need to sustain throughout the year, that's how the water rights are established. And the senior water rights, those very early water rights are worth a lot of money, and depending on which part of the country. But it also led to a big amount of dispute when all this public land gets reclassified as federal land, and that's essentially at the heart of the Bundy dispute, Lavoy Finicum dispute, this Kit Laney fella, which I'm gonna do a whole episode on their situation, but I got to do a lot more research on that to do it justice. So, but it all stems back to property right, and as much as we'd like to think otherwise, here, particularly in the Western U.S., those property rights are very much disputed. Even if they've been settled in court, they've been settled in the white man's court. And when you look at it from a Native American or Indian perspective, or Spanish or Mexican or Russian, even English, well, these are all disputed boundary claims, and I don't think they've ever been fully reconciled, and I don't know if they ever will. But with the amount of people that we have now, and just astronomical amount of people that live on the earth nowadays, and the size of these cities getting bigger, I guess one thing, maybe LA and New York won't be using as much water anymore because not as many people live there. But also, with all of that, the urbanization, even when they move out, they got to move somewhere. Like I said, Austin, Texas is growing like crazy. Boise, Idaho, Missoula, and Billings and Bozeman, Montana, same way. Denver. It's the more people that move into those areas, the more water they take. The more people move in there, the more golf courses that get built, and God knows how much water they take. And it's just it's a revolving door, really, and it's got to come to a head. It's kind of the same way with the whole financial situation. Which if you guys haven't done any research on the Federal Reserve, you really should, and how they run our money supply, particularly during these stimulus deals. So, like the whole fight over the $600 versus the $2,000 stimulus check. I understand there's probably some people out there, I don't know anybody listening here that is out of work, but if you are, I apologize. That's awful. But it's just at the end of the day, I guess it's not going to matter all that much to the overall debt. But when your yearly budget for 2019 was $4 trillion, and over the course of 2020, well, and I'd say that your yearly budget, they haven't passed a budget in I think before Obama was in office, they haven't actually passed a budget. They passed what they call a continuing resolution, which raises the amount of money that we can borrow for the short-term period, and it raises it by so much. And with all those continuing resolutions that get voted on, nothing, they just allocate where all this money's going to, and eventually they'll have to raise taxes or something. And all this pork barrel spending, which I don't know, maybe some of you guys never even heard the term pork barrel spending in school, but It's basically like, hey, I'll vote for this bill, provided you add a little something or other for, say, like this military base in my district, because that adds so many jobs to my district, and that'll keep that many people happy. And so I'll let you have this little spending project in your district as long as you add a little bit my way. And that's what we saw with the whole foreign spending deal with the stimulus deal before or I guess it was right before the election. $600 per person, American got it, but yet countries like Israel and Pakistan, getting billions of dollars. And yeah, eventually so all that money that they sent out, whether it be to our foreign aid or to direct payments to the American citizen, none of that is accounted for. That money has to come from somewhere, so the Federal Reserve just adds it to the money supply. Well, it's just like adding a bunch of ice to your whiskey drink. Eventually, you get a very watered down whiskey drink, and that's what we're getting with the money supply now. And it's been happening since the Federal Reserve was started, but you've got interest rates down close to zero, and they added like $6 trillion to the economy this past year. They're talking another $2 trillion with this next stimulus bill, and eventually your money is going to be worthless. I mean, essentially it already is, but people still have faith in it, and that's going to start running out. Bitcoin's at $40,000 or close to it. It's been down this last week or so maybe that's a good sign. But and that's going to be the same thing with all these water futures. Is pretty soon you're going to be speculating on water a couple of years out, which as much as we like to try, we don't know what the fuck the weather's going to do. And when you're trading water like that, you're not just trading corn. I know that a bad corn crop can mean life or death for a certain farm, but it typically doesn't mean, in today's day and age, it doesn't mean life or death for the farmer. It might mean life or death for the operation, but when you're talking water, that very well could mean the life or death for an entire town or an entire region. And that the water just gets sucked up, pumped to Denver or pumped to Vegas or wherever the case may be. And those people don't ever notice the difference until just all of a sudden the water is gone one day. And man, when there's no water, you talk about a reason to fight. And as much turmoil as we're seeing right now, I don't know if we're at that point yet. And God, I hope we don't come to it. And I guess I'm at close to an hour here of rambling. And I guess long story short, I don't know where the fuck it's all headed. I honestly don't. But man, we've got to start educating ourselves better. Not just signing contracts without reading them. And I don't know. I don't know where it's all going. But the push is on, and maybe that's where the whole disconnect from urban to rural. I'll ask Aaron about it when we do the next Fence Post Politics, but I think it's just a different perspective all the way around. And somehow we've got to communicate that better. I don't know how, but we've got to. Anyhow, I appreciate y'all tuning in. I don't know if I accomplished anything with this episode, but yeah, it's good to just ramble for a while sometimes. Thank you all for tuning in. I've got some cool stuff coming in here in the near future. We'll see how the schedule goes. We got a busy week coming up, but we'll get something out to y'all this week. Next week might be a little touch and go. But anyhow, we'll have the Elko show streaming live on Patreon. It's $1 to sign up for that, and you'll get access to the bull session. You'll get access to the Elko show, Elko bull session, and also get 10% off at the store. So yeah, sign up if you'd like to catch that. That'll be the only place you can watch the Elko deal is on the Patreon. I'm not going to release it as a podcast or anything. So on Patreon or bust, that's it. Or show up to the show. It's going to be a fun time. Once again, that's the Stage Door Friday at 7 p.m. Myself, Sam McHugh, Jake Houston, and Matt and Rachel Wilson be possibly Wes McKinley. We'll see how that goes, but going to be a good time. Thanks for everybody that has signed up to Patreon so far. Like I said, we're going to make something cool out of that. Got some ideas in the works. But the more people we get signed up for, the better the drawing will be too. So tell your friends, share the stuff around. I appreciate you all tuning in, and go follow me on all the shit. You know how to find me. Burning Daylight or at Move Your Ass. And yeah, keep tuning in. Tell a friend. And on that note, I think I got to get to bed. So move your ass or burning daylight.
Kind friend, you must pity my horrible tale. I'm an object of pity, I'm looking quite stale. I gave up my trade, selling rights, patent pills, to go looking for gold in those dreary black hills. Don't go away, stay at home if you can. Stay away from the city, they call it Cheyenne. For Big Wallopy or Comanche Bill, they will lift up your hair in those dreary black hills. The roundhouse in Cheyenne is filled every night with loafers and bummers of most every plight. On their backs is no clothes, in their pockets no bills. Each day they keep starting for the dreary black hills. Don't go away, stay at home if you can. Stay away from the city, they call it Cheyenne. For Big Wallopy or Comanche Bill, they will lift up your hair in those dreary black hills. Friends, to conclude my advice I'll unfold. Don't go to the Black Hills a-hunting for gold. Railroad speculators, their pockets you'll fill by taking a trip to the dreary Black Hills. Don't go away, stay at home say when